press conference is basically when multiple forms of media get together to interview someone who's newsworthy or someone, I guess, who we want to find out something about. In football terms, that may be a player, it may be a coach from a team, it may be someone who's in the news, an administrator or something along those lines. Being prepared is pretty important. It's really good to know some background on your subject. If it's a player, how many goals have they scored this season, how well have they been playing, how old they are, previous clubs. Perhaps they're coming up against a club that they've played for before. These are things that are very important to know before the press conference starts because they give you ammunition for the questions that you want to ask. In Australia, again, we tend to be a little more informal with these sort of things. Normally, we know roughly who the media outlets are and the questions are just asked directly to the talent. There's not usually an order to these sort of things. They often take care of themselves. There's usually the talent answers one question, the question finishes, there's a little bit of a lull, someone else will ask another question. And often with a press conference, there's a natural flow to it. If the person being interviewed follows a certain topic, says something that needs expanding on, the next journalist or the same journalist will ask a question following on from that question. So it is very important to listen to what the talent is actually saying before you ask your next question. The absolute key in asking questions in a press conference is ask the questions that people want to know. It's pretty simple. What do you want to know about the person who's being interviewed? And usually what you want to know about the person being interviewed is what everyone else wants to know about the person being interviewed. That is very important. It's a great skill, and often it is actually overlooked by a lot of people, that what the public want to know about a person should be the top priority in your head when you are asking questions. The reality is you are trying to do a job. The person answering the questions is trying to do a job too, and it's always very important to maintain a level of professionalism. When it comes to other journalists, try not to ask questions over the top of other journalists. That's a little bit of a skill in itself, but most of the time if you do watch a press conference, you'll find it doesn't happen. The reason being because most of the journalists have been to a lot of press conferences and they know the right time to ask a question. There's usually a little bit of a lull in the conversation, a little bit of a lull in the answer, or the talent finishes their answer and then the person asks. So it's pretty important not to try and cut off other journalists or cut off the talent while they're asking questions. Ask with a clear voice. Make sure that you pronounce everything properly so there's no grey area, so the person that you're asking the question to understands what you're saying, understands the context of your question, and understands exactly what it is that you want to know. That's pretty important.
A player's role in the press conference is to remember who they're representing, if they're representing the club and themselves, and obviously the fans of the game as well. So I think you've got to respect all three people there.
Players' role at a press conference is to, I guess, inform the public of how the team and the club is feeling towards a particular upcoming match or reviewing a match that's just passed.
A player's role at the press conference is to promote the game or promote whatever you're trying to promote coming up, make it exciting, give your view on what's happening.
A player should prepare for a press conference by maybe having an idea of what they think the questions might be and perhaps coming up with rough answers as to how they would like to answer those questions.
A player should conduct themselves in a press conference by listening to other people's answers and listening to the way the question has been asked, because sometimes people are trying to catch you out.
The most difficult part about being asked questions at press conferences, they don't always ask the questions you want to answer. So you have to be prepared to hold your ground, and they're going to press you for things that you don't want to say.
The most difficult part of being asked questions at a press conference is probably getting a bit too nervous about what you're going to say. It's very daunting, cameras in your face and getting asked questions all the time.
Respect is shown to the media at a press conference by answering all their questions as best you can, and I suppose informing the media as best you can. So you know, they will write what they will write, but I think if you give them nice positive answers and portray yourself and your teammates in a positive light, then it will only be a good outcome.
Respect is shown to the fans at a press conference by acknowledging them. I think a lot of the time that goes unnoticed as well. Sometimes they can get you across the line, and sometimes that really needs to be acknowledged in order for them to come back next week as well. but also admitting if you've had a bad game or as a team you could have done better, because the fans want to hear that. I think they want to hear truth.
Respect is shown to the opposition in press conference by, I would never talk down on another team. I guess for me, I believe that it's only going to get you bad karma, so I always show more respect for the other team, if anything, because I think in a way that's what they deserve. They would do the same to you, and I just think it's a bad look for you and the club if you're talking down about another team, and I just think that's part of sport, showing respect to the opponent.